Hey Andrew, your dad called me and said you were getting into golf a little bit, and he had some questions about instruction and clubs and this and that. And man, as I got to thinking about an instructor in Houston, I started really thinking about what would I wish that I'd had, knowing what I know now, if I could just rewind and go back to a clean slate. And through a bunch of people who've either helped me or messed me up. And I've seen, among my clients, I've seen their stories about instruction and where they are. So I wrote down 9 points that I think if you really, really just get these in your head, write them down, they'll help you out. And they'll help you in finding an instructor in Houston or wherever you are who can really, you'll know right away if they're just taking your money and showing you some little technical things, or if their heart's in the right place. So the first thing is never, ever, ever practice, or for that matter, even if you're going out to play alone, never do so for the first many years without an alignment aid, whether that alignment aid is another club that you're laying down, or a rod, or if you're on the range, a 2x4 that's about 3 feet long is fantastic. You put the ball right next to it, get your alignment, and then you're forced to swing next to the 2x4. Hey, Schmidt. So literally everyone I know in golf is either horribly misaligned and their swing has to do something crazy to get the ball to go in the right direction, or they're at least somewhat misaligned. Mostly horribly misaligned. And I'm going to tell you right now that your alignment tendency, which is the way your vision sees the hole, is never going to change. I've gone through, I have a good friend, we just went and played the other day. He lines up to the right. I'm talking the flag will be here and he's over there in the woods every time. And he and I have gone, he's a client, he's gone through years of me instructing him, kind of getting him squared away, and then the very next time I see him, he's always the same thing. And nothing will ever improve his game or swing until he fixes that, and he just refuses to do it. Maybe this last time he kind of started to figure it out, but so that's number one: alignment, 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 alignment. If your feet, and you can test this, lay a club across the front of your toes and see where it points. Go try and point yourself at a target. Then shift your toe, do it 15 times and lay the club down. I guarantee you're gonna be kind of all over the place, but you're gonna be in one general direction. And keep this in mind, even an inch, say your front foot goes backwards an inch and you assume the same platform, look at where that inch of difference in the feet leads to out at 200 yards. You'll be astonished. You never ever hit a green without some manipulation, unless you have very consistent and very good alignment. And the pros work on it incessantly, and whenever they, even throughout their lives and careers. So number two is wider stance. We tall guys in particular, every human being tends to stand with their feet kind of the same amount apart. If you're a little kid, your feet are almost heels touching. I'm standing here talking to you. If I'm comfortable, my heels are a couple of inches apart. We tall people don't stand like naturally with our feet 2 feet apart or more. The problem is we have all this weight up high, and we have a lot of length through our hips and torso. And what happens is, with a very comfortable stance where I feel like I'm kind of wide, obviously my normal standing position, my heels are 2 inches apart. I move them to 2 feet apart, and I feel like, man, that's really wide. It's not. It's still inside of my shoulders, like right here. And we need to go out to here, especially for driver and longer irons, but here works for most things. Here's why that's important. As a tall person, if we're swinging and our feet are together, until the body learns how to turn, what happens, you get to here, and then watch where my hips go. My hips start to flare out this way, And when my hips flare out, I tend to go like this. This is called a reverse C. And from there, you just can't consistently ever get back to the ball. You can get lucky and hit a good shot every now and then, but this, my feet are literally out here. Well, on my shoulders, they'd be here in the video, but they're probably a good 3 feet apart. From here, it starts to lock the hips up where I can't really do that reverse pivot. A little wider, I can't do it at all. I mean, my spine has to stay straight. Put them back together, that's what happens. So, wide stance, every tall person I know, every single tall person has their feet way too close together and their bodies look like this during every swing, right? 3, short swing. Goes hand in hand with a wide stance. So part of the reason people do this reverse pivot action is that they like to feel that their swing is really long and powerful and has all this stuff. But as soon as this elbow breaks down and as soon as this hip breaks down, then the whole rest of the swing is trying to sequence getting the hip back to here and getting this elbow straight somewhere as you're going super fast down to the ball. And it's just a train wreck. So the reason for a short swing is you got the wide stance, and if your swing can only go to here and the club's pointed just straight up in the air and you're powerful through the ball, then you got professional tour players who hit the ball 330 yards drivers just like that. John Rum, I mean, his club never goes past here. And he talks about it. He's like, yeah, my body I never could get stretched quite as far as the other guys. What's important, he knows where his real swing ends. Even if your real swing ends right here, you can be very powerful and consistent and steady through the ball. But what happens is when your real swing ends and you try and get more, all these happen. And that's 98% of players. Number 4, pick a shot shape. The shot shape needs to go with your tendencies in golf. So most people will either gravitate towards an over-the-top swing. Very few, but some people will gravitate with an inside-to-out swing that naturally produces more of a draw. Over-the-top naturally produces more of a pull cut. My philosophy has changed. I fought to improve my swing for many, many years instead of improve my playing. And to some degree, that's the right thing to do. But once you achieve a certain level of proficiency, what you really have to do is keep the ball in play and out of trouble and develop confidence that you know that your shot is going to do something it's going to do. A straight shot is the hardest shot to hit in golf. And when you try and hit a straight shot, you usually end up with what's called a two-way miss. So you'll have a tendency, if it doesn't go straight, it could be going a little this way or it could be going a lot this way. A lot this way if your tendency is to naturally do that, but you're always fighting this to hit straight, and so a lot of times you overcompensate and get that way. The straightest hitters in the game on tour typically shape the ball, and with Shot Tracer you can really see, I mean, they shape, most of the guys who are phenomenal drivers hit big cuts. Rory McIlroy, the exception, he hits a big draw. And those guys can, and Patrick Reed hits draw, those guys can hit it both ways, but man, even the best players in the world don't feel comfortable and precise in hitting the shape they don't like because they were drilled with the idea that it's very important to take what a shape shot does is it takes 1/2 of the miss out of play. So for example, if you play a cut shot off the tee, it's really easy. You square up down the fairway, you shut the face down. The ball always starts where the face is pointed. It starts a little left, but your natural move, say, is a little over the top. The ball starts a little left, but it's always going to come back into play, or it's always going to be sort of straight with a little tendency to come back into play, or worst case scenario, it's always going to go further to the right. So if you're playing this shape, you want to take this half out of play, and so if there's a hazard over here and there's a safety over there, you actually play it this way over toward the safe miss. If there's danger over here, but there's say a safe bailout over here, then you start it way out over the safe bailout and have it land closer that way. But you always know what the tendency is. What you don't want to do is have danger somewhere and have the inadvertent miss that, you know, that you feel like you're going to flare it to the right and you pull it in compensation, it goes in the lake. So very important. Just go out and hit a ball, dozens of balls, and the way the ball is shaping in flight is going to reveal your natural tendency. So let's see. Number 5, fall in love with chipping. If you don't fall in love with chipping, you'll end up hating the game. You'll just end up going out and hitting the ball great and shooting 85. And, you know, and years down the road when you know that you should have shot 76 and you shot 85 because you chunked a couple of chips and you chili dipped them and you sculled one across the green. Trust me on this, it's miserable. And to the other side of that, nobody has more fun on the golf course than someone who misses every green and goes out and still shoots 75 and chips in like 2 or 3 times and takes massive skins off of their buddies who hit it to like 8 feet and miss the putt because they're so shocked that they just got chipped in on. You know, it's like a dunk. Number 6, do whatever it takes in your learning how to set up and swing to hit the ball first. Even if you hit it, you want to hit the ball first and you want to hit it in the center of the club. The most important thing in golf at the end of the day is that the club hits the ball first and hits it relatively in, say, preferably a dime size, but for amateurs, maybe a quarter size spot in the middle of the club. I developed a swing that I tend to hit the ground and the ball at exactly the same time. I've gone through long periods of time where I get these little micro chunks and I still hit a shot that's somewhat okay, but it comes up 10 or 15 yards short and a little to the right. And because that is so ingrained in me that I hit the ball on the ground at the same time instead of the ball and then the ground, I probably am never going to get past a certain level of proficiency. That's still decent, but not good, you know, not great by any means. All great players hit the ball and then take a divot. And the way to do that is to literally go and paint a line on the ground, you know, and put the ball you put the ball on the line and see if like a white paint can line. And you put balls on the line and you see if you can hit the ball off the line and then have a divot after the line. Like, so you know you did not hit the ground at the ball. If you do that and you figure that out in the early stages, you'll be an enormously better ball striker very quickly than anyone else. And there's a reason they say thin to win. If you catch one thin, it's always going to be better than a chunk on balance. I mean, over time, hugely better to hit the ball thin than to even have it chunked a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, number 7, play with the club face closed. This goes hand in hand with learning grip. Grip does not necessarily mean exactly how all this is put together. Grip describes the relationship of the club face to your hands, okay? So if I hold the club naturally in my hands and it looks like this, and that feels really comfortable, right? And it looks just straight. It's probably true that when I swing, this is what the club face is doing. It wants to be, when the shaft is slightly leading the ball and through a swing, the club face is probably open. The way to compensate that is people say, okay, well, turn your grips way over here. And then they set up like this. And it's really awkward body position. And then their body kind of relaxes through the swing and maybe it comes through here or maybe it doesn't. But what all this convoluted grip actually translates to is that the club looks like this. You know, it looks closed. at address. It looks like it's pointed to my left as a right-hander. This, whether you play a draw or cut, is the way to grip the club, because every good swing is going to bring the club through like this. And you can test it, but if you learn to play with the club face slightly closed and learn how to power through and hit fades, or you hit draws, whatever you hit with it, you will be a better player for that. And then in an effort, because when you close the club face, you know, it's going to be a lower trajectory. But the one thing you don't want to do in golf, or one of millions, is you don't want to start like this, swing where the club wants to come back to here, and spend your whole life trying to flip it with your hands to somehow get balls to not flare off to the right. Just immediately start doing this. And if you start hooking them off of that, great. Don't change it. Then all you want to do is get your body through a little more aggressively to open the club. Just trust me on that. Let's see. 2 more points. If you go and you hire an instructor, they give you a lesson, and they're overly concerned with, like, you know, really technical, you know, swing plane issues and really technical this and that, doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. They might be a great instructor. But if they do that without first discussing alignment and grip and ball striking, then I would advise caution, because I see people, have seen people, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who've taken professional instruction. I've had people call me from the range with their instructor standing next to them, and seen them literally aimed 50 yards off target, and like this crazy looking wonky over the top swing. And the instructor has never once pulled out an alignment rod. They're trying to work with their swing instead of just the most fundamental thing in golf. The absolute most fundamental thing is alignment, because it's the setup. I mean, you imagine if you're shooting clays, you know, and your alignment is all screwed up, you're 50 yards off of, you know, your body is 50 yards, you're pointed literally 30 degrees off of where you're going to be shooting. You can't move, you can't do anything, you're never going to get any good. So, and then the last thing, again, goes back to alignment. Always have an alignment device in your bag. And when you go play by yourself or with your girlfriend or whatever, if you're not in a competitive round with friends, just throw a rod down, take 2 clubs out, throw, you know. And if you do that meticulously, nonstop, and you never hit balls without an alignment aid, then you have at least somewhat of a chance of developing a routine and developing and understanding what correct alignment should look like in your eyes. In my case, and most players, when I'm properly aligned, it looks like the hole is out in front of me, not over my shoulders. Most people do this. They want to look over like this to think they're aligned. But when you're down here in golf and you're aligned properly and you look, you know, you turn to look at the target, watch my shoulders kind of turn, and suddenly I'm aligned left. I think that most people, you know, they kind of do this, and then when they go back to the ball, they're aimed right, because the vast majority are aimed way right. And the ones who aim left naturally are equally screwed up, because they're constantly trying to figure out how to push the ball, and they usually oscillate. So the guys who naturally line right are always lined right, but it's fairly somewhat steady. The guys who align left, they just kind of go all over the place. That's what I've seen. Anyway, hopefully, and in lieu of an alignment rod that should always be in your bag, when you go to the range, one of the best players I ever knew, His name was Deal. I worked with him at Greyhawk. He always had a 2x4, and man, he would put that ball so close to the 2x4. He was literally, like, his dad made him practice where he would hit the 2x4 with the end of the club, just like shave it, and that guy could play. Now, when I say the 2x4, keep in mind that he played a little draw. So the way he used the 2x4 was he set it up, about 10 yards to the right of the target, and he had that closed club face, much more so, but he was always making his divots go a little to the right, and the ball would just come back in every time. I mean, I never saw him hit a straight ball ever. Anyway, hope that helps. Glad to hear you're getting into golf. It's really cool. And hopefully you'll, I think your dad's going to bring you a couple of longer clubs to try out. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. And that's the other thing, protect your back, protect your knees. Golf, you can enjoy it forever. But just be careful. Us tall guys bend over more. And with all the close feet and all the reverse pivoting, we're susceptible of injuries. So some of that wider stance and all will take care of that, and maybe longer clubs will help too. So, all right, good luck. Call me if you need anything. Bye.